All right, what's good, everybody? What's good? How y'all doing? Hope everybody's doing all right. Welcome to another episode of the College Access and Persistence podcast. Y'all, I'm bringing on leaders, educators, change agents within the field of education. And again, this is all about bringing those leaders in access, those leaders in persistence, talk about best practices, share the great things that are happening so that y'all can go out there and replicate it and also foster a community of collaboration. My name is Fred Johnson IV, Mr. I'm going to graduate your favorite college success coach. And y'all, we got a good one today. We got a great one today. I'm excited to interview Miss Keishann Corley, y'all, a wealth of experience in education, 8 years. She is soon to be a published author. She is working on her own book of poems. It's going to be titled Beauty. So y'all look out for that. We'll maybe get into that a little bit later. And y'all, when I tell you she is invested in supporting our children, I'm always honored to speak to people that are passionate about working with our young people and investing in their success. So Keishann, how are you doing this? How you doing today? How you feeling?
I'm doing really good. I am excited to be here and just excited to share and be a part of this. So thank you for having me.
No problem. Let's get straight to it. First thing I'm always interested to know when I bring on guests and bring on leaders to the podcast is how and why did you get into the field of education? Because everybody's journey is different.
Yes, so that is correct. Everybody's journey is different. So at the time when I got in education, I was scrambling to get out of my current career. So just imagine being a digital transcriptionist. And for those of you that don't know what that is, because yes, it still exists, I receive an audio file, I type it up, I proofread it, and then I submit it. I had an office with no window, and
Mm.
this is what I would do for 8 hours a day. And so at the time, I was balancing a lot. I was doing things with the AmeriCorps, I was mentoring, and I realized like, wow, this is where I want to be. How do I get into that? How do I shift from this to that? And lo and behold, a school was advertising for a community relations coordinator, and I got the job. Like I got it. And it was just going to high schools, doing presentations, preparing people for higher education. And from there, I got promoted, I got more roles, and really learned what it's like to identify what it means to help people. Because that's what I wanted to do. But throughout my life, I've never been able to identify how I'll be able to do that. And education gave me that how, like, this is how you can help people.
Thank you so much. I often talk to students, it's not where you start is just one part of the journey. And I think there's a lot of students who, and rightfully so, you put a lot of pressure into what am I going to major in and what's the career I want to go into. But as we all know, 5, 10, however many years into the career, more than likely you're not going to be in that same position. So can you kind of speak to, I mean, you've been in education a long time. What is
Mhm.
your, not just your trajectory, but your development over time? How have you grown just as a professional and as an educator over the past 8 years?
So, over the past 8 years, there have been a lot of ups and downs. One thing that I didn't really think about was how the different situations we go through can change us, and it can really shift where we go from there. Because although I was excited about my role and really vested in what I was doing, I needed to pivot a bit. I needed to pivot due to family situations, a couple of health things that came up. We had this huge, unprecedented pandemic that changed a lot of the ways that we served students, and being able to just kind of identify how I'm going to make that pivot and how I'm going to make that change while still maintaining a work-life balance, maintaining my personality and who I am as an individual, and still giving what I can to others.
Hmm. You touched on something that I think we often forget about just as professionals. Like, yes, we're trying to advance. Yes, we're trying to like grow our skill, but you're a person, you're a human. Things happen to you, and it's just important to understand as a person how you're growing and the things that you're kind of really paying attention to, and giving yourself some grace because it is a journey and it definitely is
Yeah.
different for everybody. So
And you
thank
brought up a
you for
good
sharing that.
point, is that
Mhm,
it's a journey. And that's
mhm,
definitely one thing that I learned. I am not going to compare my salary to anybody's. I'm not going to compare my job title. I'm
yeah,
not going to compare all these different things. At the end of the day, what is most important to me? For some people, money is important and they have to make a certain amount. But for me, when I begin to look at my situation and what I was personally working with, I wanted to go with the thing that made me happy.
mhm,
When I get up every day, how is it going to make me feel when I go here? And that's what I focused on. And that's also what I love to teach the students that I work with. Is like you have to identify what your needs are and what your wants are, because your journey is going to be different than any other student.
administrators that are listening to this. I know there are plenty of y'all that are having those conversations, and some of y'all where your role might not be directly to have those types of conversations with students, but just understand that is not just a teachable moment for a student, but can really help change how they think about spending their time in college. And just, I know for me, I started off college trying to chase the money and wanting to be a pediatrician, and that shifted because I found what brought me joy, what my passion truly was. And so for the administrators watching this, the more y'all can really talk to students to help them really discover what their gift is, what their talent is, what their passions are, and align that with the career, the better off they'll be in the long term. The money will come, the opportunities to do those things will come, but you never want money to be that driver for all the things that you're doing because it will come, it will happen, and you can't replace being happy and experiencing joy in the work that you do every day. So next question for you is really understanding again how varied your journey and everybody's journey is, but also knowing that you served in a number of roles in education. Just kind of speak to maybe a couple of those roles, and what would you say the most challenging part or parts of those roles have been, and how have you overcome those challenges?
Okay, so a couple of roles were the one that I mentioned earlier, just doing presentations to high school
Mhm.
students. Another role was placement, finding
Mhm.
employment opportunities and internship opportunities for graduates. And then a couple of the roles after that were about coaching and
Mhm.
advising and counseling students. I would say the challenge was getting students to let go of the way that they seen themselves
Mhm.
and the pressure that they were putting upon themselves.
Mhm.
So the day and age that we live in now is fast paced. It's what can I do to grab your attention? It's just real quick, 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 quick.
Mhm.
And a lot of my students would compare themselves to people that they seen on social media, or compare themselves to a friend, or um, a Greek association. I need to do this. I got to do this. I need to be doing this. I need to be doing that. But then it made no sense for their career path. So, for example, I was helping a student that was going into allied health, going into the medical field. Okay, let's focus on things that'll help you understand that particular career. You may not be able to serve on SGA and then do this sorority and then also serve in another area. Like, what is going to help you get to your goals? I know it's the big popular thing,
Mhm.
but what is it that's going to get you to where you need to be? So, helping them identify what their goals are, helping them balance their time, and helping them to embrace their unique journey.
Ooh, I wish I would have had somebody like you when I was in college, especially early on, because you
Yeah.
are. I mean, think about what students are experiencing in high school Well, a lot of it is trying to be affirmed by your peers. Let me do this thing so I can feel accepted. And now when you get to college, when it's really about standing out and discovering yourself, there's that sometimes people don't make that transition where they're able to focus more on, who am I becoming? What am I like really driving towards? What matters more to me and less about, well, I see so and so doing this, they're making this grade, they're shooting for this career, they're doing this thing, and you're just trying
Yep.
to keep up with the Joneses, for lack of a better term. And so for you, can maybe speak to like again, you started in one field and eventually like evolved throughout. Like how were you able to do that for yourself? What were some things you did?
I had to make some I had to make some tough decisions
Mhm.
because at first, that first promotion, oh, it was sweet. It was unexpected. It was sweet. I was excited. I was like, yes, I jumped from this pay to that pay. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm making this much, et cetera, et cetera. I got this title. I'm a director. And it wasn't even so much about the director title. It was just this idea that I have the degree, I have a car, I have a job, like that feel. And the thing was, though, I had all of this, but the happiness wasn't there.
Mhm.
And I just felt like that quote, money can't buy you happiness. I'm like, oh my God, that stuff is coming back to bite me. But a lot of the things that I experienced being in the workplace as a manager, that was very different because I wasn't even prepared for college.
Mm,
I wasn't even prepared for work per se. And so then to jump into a management role, I was really not prepared. And there was still some personal development that still needed to take place in how I perceived myself in the workplace
mhm,
as an African American woman, as a woman with natural hair, as a woman who I would say I have a very straight, loving face. I am
mm,
logical. And when I start thinking, I'm just thinking. But when you say good morning to me, or when I say good morning to you, or when I see you in the hall, like I just brighten up. But when I'm thinking because I'm processing
mhm,
information. And so all these little nuances of how people perceive me in the workplace as a manager, my tone of voice, how my hair is, a dress code, that says maybe for my body type, I won't be able to wear this. But if someone else has a different body type, then maybe they can wear this and get away with it. So all of these things were new because I was just thinking, I'm good at what I do. I'm gonna get the
mhm,
job done. That's it. All these other things start coming into play. And I continue to think about another reason why I got into education is I don't want students to run into the same brick walls that I ran into because those conversations were not had. Like no one pulled me to the
mm,
side and say, hey, I see your potential, you know, let me mentor you or let me guide you or let me, you know what I'm saying? Let me take your hand and do these things.
mhm,
I just had to learn it on the fly. Even feeling ashamed of my personality at one point. Like
mm,
I felt so bad about my personality. I remember taking up to, let's see, maybe 19 or 20 personality tests because I was trying to prove somebody wrong that I wasn't anal. But being anal isn't a bad thing.
mm,
But
mm,
no one was telling me that. Everyone was just saying, oh, you're to this and you're to that. But in actuality, that's a skill.
mm,
Being detail oriented,
mhm,
being organized. Remember, I was a proofreader, I was a
mhm,
transcriber. So certain things just pop out to me. And so when I speak to students, I'm trying to reframe what people have said about them, whether it's family members, whether it's an old professor or a teacher, whether it's their peers. I'm trying to reframe that for them. So when they get into the field and start working, if those same things come up in the workplace, they know how to handle it and work with it instead of internalizing it and either one, trying to change it or trying to prove themselves.
Ooh, yeah, because you're gonna get so like, and I think that's the place I am now, just personally and professionally. Is it's one thing to be motivated by proving someone wrong or like, beating the odds or whatever it is more, I think it's more motivating and at least has been for me to say, I don't have anything to prove, but this process in this journey of self discovery and just being proud of both who you are, but also who you're growing into and appreciating those parts of yourself that because others have told you X, Y, and Z, others have told you who you are, others have told you what it is about your personality, we automatically take on these sometimes negative connotations about certain words where, like you said, okay, y'all might call it anal, but it's actually being super detailed. I have a high bar for what I expect. Y'all may not like the delivery all the time, but right. And sometimes those are things we can work on. But I think sometimes it's like, here's this part of my personality that I can learn to love, right? And not just rely on others to affirm this one thing. And like you said, I love the idea of reframing. It's like, let's take this perception that everybody else has and thinks about actually what's the advantage that this holds for me,
What
right?
is the advantage? That's correct.
Right,
Yep.
right. I love that. You just spoke to somebody. You definitely just spoke to
I
me.
hope so.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Now I wanna get into this because you actually touched on something that so far in the podcast I haven't been able to dig deep on. But you talked about management, and that's something I'm relatively new to. This is my second year as a manager and managing a team. But as we know, outcomes are important in every role, whether it's directly student facing, right? There's a deliverable that has to be true, there's a goal that has to be met, whether that's the end of a quarter, end of a year. And as a manager, when you're managing a team, it's not squarely on your shoulders to ensure that that outcome is hit. So can you kind of speak to in your work in education as you've managed teams, how do you galvanize a team to be able to achieve an outcome when you as the manager are not directly in charge or responsible? Well, you're responsible for it, but you're not doing the day-to-day that it takes. You're just managing the team that does the day-to-day. Can you kind of speak to how do you hit student outcomes as a manager? You're galvanizing that team.
It's knowing what motivates your team. You have to do some team building exercises. You have to get to know them. You have to understand how they communicate and how they perceive you. Um, and that was something that I definitely overlooked because my
Mhm.
personality is like, hey, I'm just here to do a job. I'm not about to sit here and chat near the coffee machine. I'm,
Mhm.
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say, hey, how are you? And then I'm going to keep it moving. But what I realized is relationships are being built in those conversations,
Yes.
and I had to learn how to safely engage. And by safely, I just mean something that's comfortable for me because I am an introvert at heart. Remember, I talked about those personality tests. But
Mhm.
anyway, I am an introvert. And sometimes just, you know, the talking and the talking, yeah, it's funny, but I'm like, let me just do this work and then that's it. But I've learned how to use those moments and how to safely engage to where I'm comfortable, to where I don't feel like I'm being pressured to overshare or to where I feel I lost control of the conversation where people are beginning to ask so many questions and then I don't know how to back away from that. And I think a lot of times I shied away from things just because I didn't have the correct verbiage or I didn't know how to say like, hey, I don't want to have a conversation about my mom and my dad and who's in my
Mhm.
family and where I'm from and if I have kids or not. But
Mhm.
as you build relationship with people, people naturally become curious and they ask these questions because
Mhm.
that's just human nature, that's just how we are. Who am I working with? Who is this person? Who is managing me? What are they like? And so in those team building exercises, I had an opportunity not only to learn about my team, but also for them to learn about me. So we can come from the same foundation and just realize we're both here to do the same thing. We both
Mm-hmm.
love helping students. We both enjoy what we do. That's going to be the foundation that we build off of, not these other differences that don't matter. Like it doesn't matter the age difference, whether I'm older or younger. It doesn't matter if I'm introverted or extroverted. It doesn't matter none of these things when it comes to the job. So we're both here to do the same thing. We both enjoy this. We both love the students. Let's work together, build together, respect one another, um, learn how to communicate with each other, support each other. Because
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to management, it's not like I tell you what to do and you do it, but it's a team. It's a team. You are a part of the team. I am a part of the team. We are doing this together. Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm responsible for all the reports and all that other stuff. I get that. There's the pressure of that. I'm not gonna not acknowledge that. But what I'm saying seriously though is that we're a team. So let's do it. Let's build from that foundation of what we're here to do.
You just pushed me so much. I'm also, you know what? I don't know what's the in between of an introvert extrovert, but there's moments where I can be really extroverted. But you just made me realize you got to go beyond just small talk. That's the start though. But you really, as a manager, have to invest in your people. Am I really getting to know and understand them? What makes them tick? What motivates them? And there are probably certain teammates I could say I know that really well. And then there's other
Mm-hmm.
teammates where I can think like, you know what? I'm at the surface. I haven't really gotten beyond the surface. And a follow-up question that I have for you is just because can you think of a moment where because you created this space or took the time to push yourself to establish that relationship when there was either like tension or like just a challenge, how you were able to leverage that to get through and hit a goal or like push through with your team or with your teammate?
Yeah. So kind of with an understanding of how my team worked, I was able to pick on the stress. And I was able to kind of come in and say, hey, instead of us working in two separate offices, let's kind of do this thing together, um, to make sure that we meet this goal. And not even so much the goal, but to make sure that every student is served, or to make sure that we're documenting everything properly. So although we may not want to go back over and double check, the best thing to do is to double check to make sure the paperwork is correct. Because, in some programs, they're grants and everything has to be documented properly. So while one team member may not like that part of the job, they understand the importance of it because it's keeping us in our jobs because we're
Mm-hmm.
getting paid through the grant as well. So just recognizing when extra support is needed, building those relationships. You do see when extra support is needed. You're able to pick up when something is off. You know how to encourage someone. You know, like what to do to kind of pick them up. If it's leaving some candy on the desk, if it's a flower, a balloon, if it's a little note, if it's coming in singing a song like Happy Monday, that's me sometimes, introverted extrovert some days.
Gotcha.
But being able to bring in that energy and, like I said, knowing how to keep your team motivated.
Mm. All right, y'all. Y'all just got a pro tip. Managers, leaders out there, you're managing a team. Take that time this week to really think about how you can invest in every single one of your teammates and really start to build that as a culture, because that's going to ultimately lead to the thing that everybody that's listening to this podcast is trying to do: impact young people, impact our students. We're all on the same page with that. You just got to really take that extra time to really learn and grow and learn each other. So I'm gonna keep it going. And speaking to that, you talked about getting to know each other, and also like that being a really motivating force to being able to hit goals and achieve outcomes. Also knowing that there's some spaces in higher education or in education in general where we're working in silos, right? And there are some areas where there's a ton of collaboration. can you kind of speak to in your different roles or just in your career when you've been able to collaborate with a different office or even someone that you might have had a one-off interaction with where that collaboration really paid off for students, and kind of just walk and talk us through how you made it happen and how y'all work together to make it happen.
Yeah, I would say collaboration with admissions and financial aid has been wonderful.
Mhm.
So with admissions, they're bringing in students, and every institution is different, private, public, it's a lot of different higher education institutions out there. But with this particular job, working with admissions was so helpful because I had an understanding of the situation that students were in. And so when they came into the program and they got introduced to career services, or they went through an orientation, or they sat in for their first one-on-one advising session,
Mhm.
I was able, one, to kind of introduce myself, let them know how it was going to go. Two, kind of have a basic foundation of some help that they may need, but allow them the opportunity to disclose that to me so that I know how
Mhm.
to better help them.
Right.
So, for example, if let's say I'm in career services and there's a student that's coming in that may have a concern about their background and believe that, oh, how am I going to find a job? If
Mhm.
I know that beforehand, I can already start working with second chance employers. And if it just comes up like, hey, well, did you know that this is what we have when it comes to those first advising sessions or whatever the case may be, knowing from admissions that a student may need extra resources when it comes to housing or food or finding a job or
Mhm.
going through separation because they're no longer near their family. It's just very helpful with admissions to kind of collaborate in on some of those things to where extra support can be given. And with financial aid, they have all the terminology when it comes to scholarships and just different ways to assist students. And I remember tag teaming with the financial aid department to assist one student because I didn't understand what was going on with FAFSA, okay, the
Mhm.
free application for federal student aid. I did not understand the mom was second married and there was a husband and
Mhm.
then the student was there. I'm like, what? So being able to get on the phone with financial aid, find out what's going on, and be like, aha, I got it. Take that verbiage and talk, break it down to
Mhm.
where the student now can kind of understand, like, hey, I know this is what they said, but maybe if you hear it from me, you'll interpret it differently. Who knows?
Mhm.
However it happens, but just having that collaboration is just very helpful to where we're all saying the same thing. We're all supporting the students, and it doesn't matter who has the strongest connection with the student as long as the students know what's needed and how they can get to the next step of getting their degree.
Ooh, that is clutch. That is clutch. What would be your advice for that administrator that's hesitant to reach out to that department or that office that they don't know? And that's the
Mhm.
biggest barrier. That's the biggest thing in the way of them really engaging in more collaboration. What would be your advice to them?
To that person, I would say if your institution does not already have a liaison, because some institutions do for your particular program or your particular area, just pick up the phone and call somebody. And if you guys kind of click, you know what I mean by that. When you're talking to somebody and like, oh, okay, this person was very helpful. I wish I can talk to you all the time because that's what I did. I was like, hey, this is my title. I don't know you, but is it okay that I just email you when stuff like this come up? Or maybe we can kind of go to a lunch and I kind of let you know what my role is because I know I am going to have additional questions. I know that I don't understand this process in full, and I want to make sure I'm doing warm transfers when I'm sending a student to you or sending a student to that department or vice versa. So that's kind of how I built that. But first, find out if there's not already a liaison. And if there's not, make your own, get your own.
I love it. I love it. I really appreciate you. First of all, even in that small snippet you just said, name, here's who I am, here's my title. I know I don't know you, but, and then blah, 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 whatever it is after that. Acknowledge whatever the elephant in the room is, or the
Yeah.
awkward moment. I'm calling you, you've never met, we've never met. Let's just get that out there, but we're both professionals working at this institution. I also like the piece you said about, like, especially if there's somebody you're gonna have relative consistent outreach or communication with, let's go to lunch. Let's get to understand each other, create the space and the conditions to know, like, hey, I definitely want to just stay connected with you in case things come up. And I think another thing you talked about too is there is a mutual benefit, right? And so even though you're extending the olive branch, understanding that that person will be leaning on you as well. And so just as you want them to be responsive and kind of really help you make maybe certain processes smoother or faster, they in turn are going to lean on you to do the same thing, and just be prepared to reciprocate what you expect that, or what you want that relationship to be. Look, Keishann is giving y'all a bunch of nuggets to run with, liaison. Like, look, everybody's department, everybody's team should definitely be getting better by implementing these things. Next question. Got a couple more questions for you. This is always a good one. I'm always interested in hearing this one. Of course, there are a ton of spaces where there's great things happening in higher education, but of course, we know we're not there yet. We're not where we want to be.
True.
No university is yet. So if you could wave a magic wand and education was forever changed, when we think about our minoritized students, our underserved students, in terms of them being most successful, if you could wave this wand and they were the most successful students, what changes would you make in education to make that true?
I think, and I hope this gets to the purpose of the question. I will remove competition.
Mm.
I think that if the competition isn't there in the minds of the students, the institutions, and the minds of everybody, the way the students will be taught, the way that students will reach out, I think just a lot would change if it just wasn't about competition. If everyone just focused on their own individual, and I keep saying journey, and I do want to give a shout out to Dr. Asha at Temple Fit, because she did a presentation at Florida State University, and she really honed in on the importance of everyone embracing your journey. And one of the things that she said that I really loved is that when you are in a race, the goal is to get to the end. So there may be some that move faster, whether it's a run, a sprint, a walk, a skip. I'm going to take a nap for a little bit, then get back up. I'm about to make my own path, and then I'm going to come back to the race. Everybody just needs to get to what their end is going to be. And if we're not all competing, it just takes away so many of the barriers for the students themselves and for the institutions. Because in some situations, even if a wand was waved and education was changed and minorities were, would we be used and pushed forward properly? Or would it just be about numbers to say, come here, because this is what we've done. We were able to graduate this many of you when you came to our schools. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not sure if that makes perfect sense. But as I'm just kind of putting it together and just thinking about the question, just no competition.
I mean, and that's the thing I feel like probably within the past month, I've learned the most about just myself and business, is that you're right. It's not a competition, right? There's more than enough room for all of us to eat. And at the end of the day, like it is about your own self-development, your own self-realization. And understand that we have no idea the other things that people have going in their life, the advantages they may have, what their starting point might be. However long this race is, they may be starting 100 feet ahead of you, but all you've seen is like where they are now. You don't know where they started, and so all you can control is your own journey, your own pace, and understanding you're not going to be able to rush success is going to come when it's supposed to come. And so I definitely feel you on that, removing that need for competition, or that mode of competition, and really having people just focus on themselves, their own growth, their own development, and things will happen as they're supposed to happen. I know it sounds cliche, it
Mm-hmm.
sounds zen, but there's so much peace that I've been able to bring to myself because I've adopted that mindset now, where I'm not beating myself up after a week or after a day, or shoot, after a month, where I didn't get to this point where I thought I should be. It's going to happen when it's supposed to happen. And all I need to really focus on is, am I getting better? Am I focused
Mm-hmm.
on figuring out how to do this thing better? If I'm doing that, eventually I'm going to hit the goal. Eventually I'm
Yep.
going to finish the race or get to that next checkpoint. So thank you for that. Thank
Yeah.
you for that.
And definitely acknowledging those improvements, no matter how small it
Mm,
is.
mhm,
Every
mm.
improvement. It doesn't have to be the big things, you know? So,
For sure. Got to give yourself a pat on the back, right? It doesn't have to be the large goal. It could be like the one baby step you took. That's a step forward. And more important sometimes than people give credit for. Sometimes the baby step, the momentum is the critical
mm-hmm.
thing. It's not like, oh, did I get the big goal done? So you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. My last question for you. Of course, again, you've been working in education for a long time. I know you're not going to hang it up yet. I know you got some more time in the field of education and just in your professional career. Always interested to understand what you want your legacy to be in education. If we're at your retirement party and all the students and people that you work with are there and we get
Ooh,
ready to toast, what would you want your legacy to be? What would you want them to say about you?
yeah, that was definitely on the spot. So I'm gonna kind of fill the space with that was on the spot so I could come up with an answer. Legacy.
Mhm,
A lot of the talk has been about diversity and inclusion.
mhm,
My perception is that sometimes we forget that different personalities are also included in diversity and inclusion.
mhm,
And so I want my legacy to be one that will dive deeper into what that looks like when we have these common and frequently repeated phrases in our everyday talk about, oh, you too shy, you should do this, or to
mm,
network, you have to do this. I mean, even the phrase fake it till you make it. I
mhm,
wonder underneath it all, what does that really mean and how are we interpreting that? Because a fake it till you make it can be interpreted so many different ways. Am I lying until I make it? So therefore,
mm,
my ethics later on in life when I get into a job will suffer.
mhm,
Um, am I just pretending and putting on a mask and being someone that I am not instead of just identifying who I really am and embracing that person and then finding something that's going to fit? I think that we have a lot of things that we just say, but we don't really realize what it means. And we don't realize how even ourselves as professionals, not just students, but even professionals, how we're absorbing that and how that plays out in our day to day life. So, my legacy in education would just be one that, as I said, just dive deeper into what we are really teaching
mm,
students and what we are really teaching ourselves. Because
mm,
honestly, some of the things that was shared with me, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't
mhm,
share that with no other student. Like that wouldn't be the way that I coach a student. I would want to take into account their background. I would want to take into account what their personality is like and what their goals are, instead of just repeating something that someone said to me. Like, what does it mean for that particular student? We are all so different. So we can't just repeat the same thing or say the same thing and think that it's going to work. Because in actuality, that doesn't mean anything. Because when does the faking stop? Do you really fake it? Okay, fake it till you make it is kind of assuming that you are going to make it if you keep faking it.
mhm.
versus something that's like, okay, smile because it will make you feel better, or
Mhm,
your voice will sound different over the phone.
mhm,
Do you see what I'm saying? Like
mhm,
one is just more concrete and just proven, like it just naturally happens. I can tell a student, okay, I want you to smile right now, start talking. Do you hear the difference? Do you see the difference? Do you already feel a difference versus a fake it till you make it? Because how are you faking it till you make it? So like I question the things that were said to me. I question the ways that I was and was not guided. And I'm just like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm giving the students more. I want to make sure that I'm really providing them their unique session, their unique conversation. I won't be able to repeat everything that someone has said to me. And now, let me say, this is not to knock that phrase. This is not to
mhm,
knock anyone that has said it, because I have said it before, but it's for us to really go back and analyze and review, what are we really saying? How are we really helping? The thing that used to get to me a lot was the way that some shy students may be treated.
mhm,
Oh, you need to speak more, you need to do this. Yeah, like in some cases, yeah, that's very true. But it's not true that every shy student have to come out of their shell. Like, break
mhm,
that down, like break it further down. What does that mean?
mhm,
I want to be known for breaking things down further. I want to be known for getting to the nitty gritty of stuff. I want to be known for helping students reframe these things, that's just given to them, that they've just absorbed from family, that they absorbed from TV. So that's what I want to be known for.
That is awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel like we have covered a ton of critical bases when we think about what it looks like to impact students, to have that connection, to really how to manage a team, how to collaborate. I felt like we really touched on some things that people will be able to take, people will be able to run with. I definitely am a better professional for having spoken to you today. So
Glad to hear
thank
that.
you so much. Before we kind of close things out, I want to hear more about your book that's going to be coming out. Tell us kind of what inspired it, what people can expect. Maybe if you have a date or a deadline, a month for people
Yeah.
to expect it, let us know.
Yeah, so I've been writing poetry since like 13, but there was a moment in my life where I don't know, I guess I just stopped writing. But I do have a creative bug to where words are just coming. Sometimes you may hear singers or writers or rappers or whoever just say like they just up and it just keeps coming. And there was a season in my life where I experienced some very abrupt personal development, where my personality was in question, my appearance was in question, like everything was in question. And I was upset. I was upset with the world. I was upset with just everything. So I'm just going to bring this up. Everything is about shaking the butt, shaking the
Mhm,
booty,
mhm.
cartoons, shaking butt, music. It's all. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I even had a coworker slap my butt before.
Wow.
Who does that? You
Wow.
see what I'm saying? Like, who does that? And then I'm getting beauty tips. Oh, makeup would enhance your beauty. You would look so beautiful with the
Mm.
wig. Like all this stuff is just coming at me in the workplace. I'm like, isn't this inappropriate? Like,
Oh
why are
my
we talking about my
God.
appearance? I think I look fine.
Yeah.
I don't even want to wear makeup because I don't want to spend the money on it. But I just don't want to do that. That's not what I would like to do. But people so freely and openly brought it up and just was throwing it in my face. And I pushed back against that. So I titled the book Beauty because we all are beautiful.
Mhm,
Okay. That's just what we are. It is unfortunate that we are conditioned to see certain looks and styles as more beautiful than something else. But I am not going to put that on the students that I speak to or anybody else that comes in my presence the way that it was put on me. If I decide not to wear makeup, it's okay. If I have natural hair and I don't want to wear a wig, it's okay. Like, it's okay. I can't help the way my body is shaped. No, I'm not going to dress the way that you think or suggest I should dress. Oh, if I had a body like that, I'll wear this and I would, well, that's great for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you would do that. But when I experienced a lot of that in the workplace, I didn't have anything to go to that just really would pick me up. Just read a couple of things or look in the mirror. How they say, oh, look in the mirror, have all these,
Mm-hmm.
but just pull in different scripture, that's for me personally. That's what I would do. I pulled different scriptures, seeing what God had to say about me, but then also what I would say about myself. And just day after day, I just remember day after day, I was at the park in my car, just writing about my hair, writing about my clothes, writing about my face, writing about my personality. I wrote a poem for my niece because she has natural hair. And I'm already telling her, like, you're beautiful, your hair is fine. If you don't want to do anything with it, that's okay. Even to my nephew, if you want to read, it's okay to read. Because every time he talks about movies, his brain is processing different groups in movies. Oh, you have the jocks, and you have the nerds, and then you have this. And so I questioned him. I was like, hey, can a jock be smart too? Can a nerd be a jock too? So I'm trying to let him know that, yes, you may see this common theme in movies because he's logical like me. So he's processing all this information. He's seeing the patterns. He's taking it in. But you don't have to be conditioned to think that way. So if you want to read and you're okay with reading, then you continue to read. You don't have to play sports. But sometimes our kids feel that they have to because that's all they're seeing and that's all they're hearing. And so that's why I wrote it. So it's going to touch women, it's going to touch girls, it's going to touch men as well, giving them tools of maybe something that they can read to their daughters. So when these things come up, you don't have to worry about waiting until you're in the workplace to try to dig it all out. Like, hey, where's my arsenal? Where are my words? What am I fighting this with? Because I don't want to be conditioned that way. I need to have a response. And although this should not be happening in the workplace, but that's just me. I want to have a response to the people that say, oh, if I look like that, I would wear this, or oh, I would wear a wig, or you should let me do your makeup. So, yeah. And those were some of the reasons why I would shy away from small talk. It's because it's just expected. It's the expectation. So when we think about diversity and inclusion, we have to think about personalities. You have to. So yeah, the book is still in progress. I'm on the second draft.
Okay. I know the
But
process.
I'm gonna start doing presentations and traveling, just going to different places. I'm actually gonna be at Central University in North Carolina to do a presentation on career action planning. And so as I just book more presentations, I'm just gonna share the information. I'm gonna get it out there. It doesn't matter if it's high schools, elementary schools. I think we all just need to be reminded that we're okay in our own skin, in our own body type, instead of going off of what the world is trying to tell us is beautiful. Because if we all go off of that, then all of us are ugly, if you think about it, because none of us are perfect and there's always going to be something that we could fix. And I don't want my students to think like that. I want to prepare my students with the proper verbiage, with the proper ways to communicate, how to get out of a conversation, how to respond to certain things, because I didn't know that I needed to be prepared for that. I thought I was just being prepared for a job, not being prepared for conversations on the job.
Man, this is going to be a powerful book. And look, I know the process. You're putting your all into it. So where can people like just follow you, stay in tune, so that way when you start to put it out there for purchase, what's the best place for them to be able to follow you and reach you?
Yes, so right now I am on LinkedIn. I know everybody is doing a Twitter, Facebook, all this other stuff. I'm gonna get there. If y'all give me like 6 months, and if any student wants to intern and do it for me, because remember I'm an introvert, so I'm not gonna keep up with all that. Yes, I will pay you. We'll talk about it. But my name is Keishann, probably the only Keishann you'll ever meet. So just look me up on LinkedIn, Keishann, and then we're just gonna take it from there. And the book is gonna be sold anywhere you can get a print book, a digital book, everywhere. It's going to be everywhere.
Awesome. Well, look, I can't wait. I know we can't wait. Thank you so much for such a great interview. Y'all, thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of the College Access and Persistence podcast. Make sure y'all comment, make sure y'all like, make sure y'all subscribe. And you know what I want you to do in the comment? I want you to let me and Keishann know what was the most impactful part of the interview that y'all heard today. Let us know. And if you have questions, light it up in the comments. So with that being said, thank y'all again for tuning in, and we're going to see y'all on the other side of graduation. Have a good one.